You know, February 14, Valentine's Day, is just around the corner. I see a few panic looks on some guys' faces. It's not tomorrow. You still have time to get a card. But given the proximity of it, I decided to give a talk about relationships. Not conventional relationships, not the kind that you might have with your spouse or your partner, but rather clients and prospective clients' relationships with their finances, and why our presence at a kitchen table may be necessary to save the next generation. You know, love is about choices, and so is money. And over the last 5 years, there's been a profound shift in the way younger investors approach financial decisions. I believe too many Gen Zs and younger millennials are straying from fundamental concepts, the kind we teach in How Money Works: Rule of 72, pay yourself first, power of compound interest, become an owner, not a loaner. The advice that they are getting is bad advice. And it's a consequence, I think, of the misinformation age. You've heard of the information age. We may be in the misinformation age. Now, I think that presents opportunities for us and challenges, but most of all, I think it presents a responsibility that everyone in this room has to get to a kitchen table and to help sort out that advice. You see the misinformation when we take surveys. So every quarter, Primerica does a survey of middle-income households, statistically significant survey, not just our clients, all households. We publish that in the Financial Security Monitor, which comes out every quarter. Does anyone ever see that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Boy, if you don't, please look out for Primerica's Financial Security Monitor. It's really an important publication. Well, this past quarter, knowing that it would come out around Valentine's Day, we included a Valentine's Day question. We did a press release. It just came out. And let me give you that question. So the question is, if your financial stress had a relationship status, what would it be? So the least chosen answer was back together again. That was 7%. 10% said, we're not speaking. 13% were not sure. On the rocks was chosen by 15%. 17% are going strong. That's good, right? 17% are going strong. But by far, the choice of most, more than double any other, was it's complicated. Selected by 38%. How many can identify a little bit with that? It's complicated. You know, treating your finances as a romantic partner actually makes sense. Your days are all spent together. It's hard to get away with doing dumb stuff. You pay a very big price for neglect. Affection is rewarded until death do you part. And even then, you might have to pay some estate taxes. You know, the harder question to unravel in this survey is, what was meant by it's complicated? The answer is, it's complicated. The changes over the past 5 years that I mentioned a minute ago, basically think of it as post-COVID, are at least a partial cause. You can start with macroeconomic forces that have really battered the middle class. So middle-income families today are coming off of 5 years, essentially, of inflationary pressures where wages have not kept pace with the rise of the cost of goods and services. People feel like they have enough to get by, but just not enough to get ahead. I also think that the media, with all of its doom and gloom out there, and its emphasis on folks getting ahead at the expense, they say, of others, have made middle-income families feel like the odds are stacked against them, that they don't have control. One person I spoke to about this put it this way. They said, you know what? I feel like I just can't win. And that makes them vulnerable to bad advice. I think it's complicated because of the sheer volume of noise out there about everything. You know, again, we live in an age where there's so much information coming at us, but how much knowledge are we really gaining from that? What to do, where to get help, how to improve one's financial condition. You know, there used to be, I'll call them truths. That's what you see in how money works. But today, it seems like no one even agrees on what those truths are when it comes to finances. Yahoo Finance, which aggregates articles about financial matters, publishes articles every single day on their website, just one site. Guess how many articles they publish daily? Over 1,000 articles. And all of this information coming at people is making them freeze. I also think folks are just stressed in general by the sheer pace and complexity of life. Technology, and I'm a believer in technology. At the senior leadership meeting, I talked about how this company is going to make a huge investment in technology. It's very important to give you the tools you need. But at the same time, in a sense, there's too much tech out there. Everything now is tech, tech, tech. I mean, I'm now the chief technology officer of my household, something I am not equipped to do. Wi-Fi, passwords, information security, out of my zone. But I'm expected to be able to deal with all that. Of course, I call my son when I need help. You know, everything is kind of becoming a little bit more complex, and companies, not ours, but companies seem to be shifting the burdens of time and effort from themselves to the consumer. We're the ones that have to complete all these forms. We're the ones that have to take our time to make sure things are right. And as financial firms go upscale, they push much more on middle-income investors to do it themselves. So they don't give them a representative, too expensive for them. What they do is you get a call center and a bot. You know what a bot is? Everyone know what a bot is? Robot? You've all dealt with them, right? When you've called anybody. They're tough, and they're getting tougher. When I call any of these call centers for myself, I always say, I'd like to speak to a customer service representative. Do you do that? Every time. Please. We need to learn from the bots of overcoming objections, because I can't get past them anymore. Oh, yes, of course. We'll send you to a customer service representative. Please tell me, though, what it is that you want to talk to them about. Well, I'd like to customer service representative. We'll get you to a customer service representative. I mean, we can learn from that. First, buy a little life insurance. You know, but you cannot get past the bots. I had one the other day. This is absolutely true. A few days ago, I called. I'd like to speak to a customer service representative. Well, what do you want? You know, the whole bit. No, I want to talk to a person. Just get me to a person. I'm getting agitated. They're very calm. And they said, I'm an automated person. Wow. I submitted to them for a little while, but I eventually got to someone. You know, I figure it's them or me. They never get my name right. Welcome back, Mr. Spider. And then you hear, I say, oh, it's Schneider. Then you hear, you know, agent typing. Like, they don't even have bodies. Why do I think they have fingers? You're not fooling me. But they always get me because they time me out on two-factor authentication. I can never get the number or then get back to the app. The latest is a doozy I saw, a smart refrigerator. Ever hear of this one? So I have a picture of one here. I don't have one. I have a dumb refrigerator. So it advertises as a family hub. Basically has an iPad and a refrigerator, and it says, you're not going to believe this, it will help you manage your finances. That's all I need, is my refrigerator managing my finances. It says it's going to be the hub of the family. It's already the hub of the family. My refrigerator doesn't know. It opens every 2 seconds. But let me tell you the biggest culprit I see that is changing the way folks approach financial advice, and that's where they turn for that advice, especially younger generations. There's been a massive societal shift that was unleashed by that little device, wonderful, extraordinary, love it, need it device in every single person's pocket in this room. In fact, there are more cell phones on the planet than people right now, talking about active subscriptions. More active subscriptions for cell phones than people right now on the planet. That has transformed where people get their financial advice. Used to be a straightforward, used to be an insurance agent or accountant or a stockbroker or parents. Every once in a while, you know, at a family gathering, after too many eggnogs, Uncle Louie will give you a stock tip. But it used to be you would go to a professional who has a license, who knows what they're doing, like everybody in this room. But today, increasingly, advice is coming online from strangers who have none of what I just said. They don't have licenses, they don't have the ability, they haven't even actually served real clients. It doesn't come from trusted advisors. In our Financial Security Monitor survey, we asked, do you currently use a financial professional? 73% said no. So where do they get this help? TikTok, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and Reels. In short, social media. LIMRA, which is the life insurance industry's research arm, has done a survey themselves for 15 years. In the last survey they found in 2025, 62%, you can see it on this slide, 62% of Americans use social media for financial advice. What's astounding about that is in 2019, that number was 29%. LIMRA said that is the biggest shift, 114%, they've ever had in a question in their survey, the number of folks using social media for financial advice. And then when you look at it generationally, it's even more staggering. 84% of Gen Zs turn to social media for financial advice. The hashtag FinTok, so FinTok is TikTok, but it's the financial stream for TikTok, hashtag FinTok, had in 2025 3.7 billion views, an increase of 373% over just 2024. And then there's a new game in town, generative AI. ChatGPT, Gemini, AI is being used increasingly for financial advice. Second only to health and wellness, the questions that come into ChatGPT, and it's programmed to go in the direction it believes a person is leaning. 90% of the time, it will agree with whatever it's being asked. Want to do Bitcoins? Should I do Bitcoins? ChatGPT? Heck yeah, let's go there. That's the reaction folks are getting. And our surveys show a very strong preference for human advice. People want it, but it also shows why they're not seeking it. Number one, they say, I don't think I have enough money for a professional. Second, they think it costs too much. But here's where it gets really scary. In the gap you have a new breed of, I'm calling them entertainers. They're called finfluencers. Ever hear that term? Financial influencers. Ever hear the term influencers on social media? These are financial influencers. They're entertainers who are out there telling folks, mainly Gen Zs, what they should be doing. We put together a little montage of them. Take a look at the finfluencers.
If you have a smaller account, your net worth is lower, you don't necessarily need an advisor. A lot of people can handle that on their own. A chat bot can tell you how to do that.
But my strategy is pretty simple, and it's just building long-term wealth while I'm young.
I just helped my little sister invest her first $1,000 in the stock market.
Guys, I bought this 1 ounce gold bar from Costco for about $3,400 back in April, and today I am selling it with Ben.
Right now, paying $42.40.
Look at all that money, I appreciate it.
If you want to get rich in your 20s, then you need to learn from rich people. If you don't know any rich people, don't worry, I've got you.
So I took the $2,500 and I invested it into the stock market, mainly tech companies, and then recently just got into AI. Let them sit over time, and then voila, we made 100 grand.
Voila! So easy, right? Just put in tech stocks, AI, you're 22 years old, maybe do a little gold, a little Bitcoin. That's how you make money. Not how money works, not fundamentals of compounding interest, being in the stock market, putting money aside in an emergency fund. Where's that? Chatbox can do that, they say. Very engaging, but are they dispensing legal advice? No. What are they doing? They're looking for clicks. If they can get a certain number of clicks, then they can do advertising. What's that advertising? Cosmetics, jewelry, clothes, and then, I'll get to this in a minute, there's a dark side to this, how they're compensated. None of this advice is personalized. It's sold as being free. I'll tell you this, in my experiences, the most expensive things are free because you pay the price at some point. And yet, that is our world. We cannot ignore it at Primerica. That's the world we're in. So what do we need to do? Number one, we need to put more folks at more kitchen tables. It begins with recruiting and licensing. I believe that is a mission for us. That's part of the crusade that we now have. We know from our own studies that Primerica advised individuals make better decisions, have better outcomes, and are more confident in their finances. An RVP is better than ChatGPT. Second, we have to play ourselves in this space. Not like that, but we have to be on social media. There was once a time we didn't think that way. We now think that way. Thank goodness in 2021, fairly recent, we began building Primerica Social. We have hundreds, thousands of posts in there now. We're going to have some Valentine's Day posts. You see these here. Last year, our Primerica Social users in the field posted 400,000 times our content. We believe it reached 80 million people. And we continue to improve it with your guidance. In the second quarter of this year, we're going to be rolling out automated Primerica Social lead generation, a way that you're able to use your social posts, get information back from the client, and feed that into our CRM system, and then start an RMC campaign. It's a wonderful thing. Julie is doing CRM, RMC. We have folks on social, Captain Teaser. It's going to help you deepen your relationship from social media. But we also have to be part of the video world. And so what we decided to do very recently is we decided to take the existing Primerica YouTube channel. We hired a professional at that. His name's JC Rodriguez. By the way, it's branded as Primerica. Everyone knows it's Primerica. And JC gets paid for his time. But he's a YouTuber. And he represents us on our YouTube channel. Take a look at JC giving calm and thoughtful advice.
Social media has become a place where people can look successful and not necessarily be financially secure. But what you see isn't necessarily the full story. One thing that helps us in guaranteeing that we're saving and paying ourselves first each month is that we schedule that automatic transfer on the day that we get paid. And when you take the steps to automate your paycheck routine, you're not just managing your money, you're building a financial life that runs itself and gives you more peace of mind. If you have an emergency fund that can cover $1,000 of expenses, then you're already doing better financially than 40% of Americans. A good rule of thumb in order to see if you have a full emergency fund is to save enough money that would cover at least 3 to 6 months of your expenses.
JC Rodriguez on behalf of Primerica. And finally, in this world, we have to make sure we have credibility online, that our bona fides are bolstered, that we show up better in the way search is done now, which is clickless. 90% of folks will not go past the AI overview. They don't click on anything else. That's where they think, I got it. I got all the information I need. We need to be presented fairly on that. Right now, we're not. It's okay, but we could do so much better. And then when there's a search, like we got to show up better. A search for MLMs brings us up 39% of the time. A search for life insurance brings us up 2% of the time. We have to change that. I also believe the absence of good advice is taking its toll in the life insurance ownership area. It's complicated, loving life. But it's something that we have to change, again, being at the kitchen table. Our Financial Security Monitor survey asked about life insurance, and one answer caught my eye. You see it right here. When thinking about life insurance coverage and associated savings, which approach best meets your needs? What caught my eye was the answer, 32% said they don't need life insurance. We know that's not true. We know 32% of respondents, they need life insurance. Most folks need life insurance. We dug into the reasons why. 3 reasons. Number one, there's confusion about types of insurance. Most folks actually don't know the difference between whole life and term, and IUL and term. The cost, there's a belief it's too expensive, and then the reasons to own it, when we did our survey, way down the list is income replacement. What is number 1 on the list? Funeral expenses. And that absence of good advice is what's causing folks not to buy. LIMRA did a survey on cost. It was really interesting. They asked folks, how much do you think you'd pay for $250,000 in coverage, 20-year term, 30-year-old healthy male? What would your cost be? The respondents to that estimated their cost to be 3 times the actual cost. But then they thought, well, that's just because it's hypothetical. They asked folks, what do you think you would pay? And then they underwrote them. Folks were even worse. They estimated their own cost at 10 times the actual cost of insurance. That's why they're not buying life insurance. And yet, the reason to buy life insurance, income replacement, is way down the list, as I mentioned. 47%, if you look at this slide right here, this comes from LIMRA's study, 47% of families would suffer a financial impact within 6 months if the primary breadwinner passed. Having life insurance, we all know, as part of your financial plan is essential. But it's not being talked about the way it needs to be talked about. So what do we need to do? Number 1, put more Primerica reps at the kitchen table. We've got to debunk these myths. We also have to make the purchasing experience so much better. Now, we started that with NextGen. NextGen 2.0 is going to take it to another level. Julie will mention it. Right now, NextGen 2.0, what we're targeting are the 30% of applications that fail to convert to an issued policy. And so how are we doing it? We're reducing the number of rated policies, we're declining fewer policies, and we're upgrading more policies. Let's talk about investments, because buying term is just half the battle. The more you give, the more you get. That's investments. But what's happening in investments? Same issue. Lots of information, a little bit of knowledge. Our financial security monitor included what I considered to be a very intriguing question. If you could send a financial message to yourself 5 years ago, what would it be? Choose two. The two top choices were sort of the same. Start saving earlier and invest sooner and more consistently. So what this tells us is folks regret waiting to invest. 5 years ago, I wish I invested more. My fear is if we gave that survey to the exact same group in 5 years from now, they're going to say the same thing. I wish I had started 5 years earlier. But we know that waiting is a financial disaster waiting to happen. You take advantage of none of the compounding effects of money. And that's what's happening in the middle market. A third haven't saved anything for retirement. And we ask, do you think you're saving enough to be able to retire comfortably? What's the answer? 63% say no. 17% say not sure. That's a no. I mean, folks are not saving enough for retirement. The biggest challenge there is there's no wealth creation if you're not saving. So what do we need to do? That's not due to an absence, by the way, of income. Here's the interesting thing is, middle income incomes have actually gone up. I mean, you may not be reading this in the financial press, but it's going up. What's happening is when you hear about the shrinking middle class, what's actually happening is there's a growing upper middle class. In 1979, 10% of families were upper middle class. In 2024, 31% of families are categorized as upper middle class. That's six-figure income earners. And the lower middle class has shrunk. But if money's going up in the household, why is wealth not being created? Again, it's an absence of bad advice. Folks are not putting away money into a 401k. They're not even at work putting enough money to get the match. They're underinvesting in the stock market. What are they doing? They're going to Reddit. So what's Reddit telling them to do? And they're all posting about this. Number one, one fellow is named Hexagonal Hegemony. That was his handle. He put all his money into Brilliant Bank, he said. He's touting that. It's actually brilliant for the bank. He got 4.2% interest on his money. Someone else responded, well, I opened a Roth. I loved reading that until I found out she was 19 years old and decided to put it all in a short-term CD at a bank. But here's the frightening part. Where is Gen Z investing? A quarter of Gen Z's portfolio today is in cryptocurrency. And 31% of 18 to 34-year-olds see online sports betting as the way to create wealth. I wish it was just because they grew up with gaming. I wish it was because they like fun more than fundamentals. But this is where that darker side comes in. Guess how the finfluencers get paid? Very sinister. Let's just take sports betting. Finfluencers receive upfront retainers and include betting links on their site when you go to their site. They get what's called affiliate fees, and they get a percentage of the losses of folks who sign up. They get a percentage of the losses. So imagine us if we were paid on how much people lose. That's them. Crypto, they get paid for posts based on the number of followers, and so they want to generate more followers. This is scandalous, and regulators are starting to get wind of it, but here's the problem. They don't have clients, they have followers. The laws as they're written don't apply to them. There is no suitability, fiduciary duty. The advice, they say, is not personalized. I'm exercising my First Amendment rights. This is a new crusade for us. So what do we need to do? We need to get in more households, and we need to use the licenses we have. Look at this. Over 25% of our security license reps did no commissionable sales in 2025. We need to use those licenses, and we need to use them because it's good business for us. Just in January, we paid the all-time record in a month for securities comp, $77 million. And January is usually not a big comp month. It's an all-time record of all months. So we've got to do that. We also need to revitalize our F&A. We understand that. This is going to be a convention deliverable. If you don't have a plan, it's hard to plan. And so we've got to make a new F&A that's living and breathing, AI-enabled, hooked up with CRM. This is a goal of our company for our convention. Let me go to my last topic area, which is debt. Breaking up is hard to do. You know, folks who are on the rocks are not speaking. Usually it's because of money issues. They're not speaking because of debt. It's the number 2 source of conflict. I'm told the number 1 source of conflict is, no one's answering because I don't even know what's going on in your head here, tone of voice. I don't know if that's right or not, but I do know money is a huge source of conflict. About 25% of spouses hide something about money from each other. Usually it's about spending and debt, credit card use. And when we asked our respondents on our survey, what are you doing about that? They said they're cutting back. That sounds good, right? Oh, good, cutting back. Guess what they're cutting back on? They answered savings. They're cutting back on savings to pay debt. And there's a new scourge called BNPL. Anyone hear that? Buy now, pay later. That's how people are buying their meals on Uber Eats and paying over time. You know, there's nothing wrong with credit. Credit is good, but debt is bad. And it's got to be managed. Well, we have an answer for that because we also saw in our survey young people can't buy houses. 57% thought it was the biggest financial hurdle they had. So what are we doing? Primerica Mortgage. Primerica Mortgage started just a few years ago, not that long ago. We can help with debt consolidation. We can help folks with great rates on a mortgage. We also are in Canada, where we have a referral business. And we have the best training we've ever had. There's a new, Eugene Kapitsky has done a training video, a series. It's gonna be picked up by Netflix, it's so good. It's amazing. If you wanna learn how to do the mortgage business, look at that. It is real, and it drives everything else. Drives recruiting, drives life sales. Sitting at table number 2 is Jose Gutierrez. Jose, stand up. There's Jose. Jose did $120,000 in mortgage comp. Big money, but he's not here because of mortgages. We finally got some slots. He's here because of all the other things. It feeds your business. Take a look at that. Okay, the last thing we did in our financial security monitor, we aggregated a final scorecard, and we looked at 5 things. You know, you just check. Do you pay more than minimum on a credit card? Do you have life insurance? You know, do you have some investments other than cash? Very simple things, very fundamental. And you got 1 point for each of those. If you got all 5, you got an A, that's only 6%. Unfortunately, 78% were C or worse. We cannot sit here and let that happen to our clients. We have an obligation. I gave the test to my refrigerator. They did terrible. You know, I'll tell you what's not complicated. What's not complicated is what we do. Creating financially independent families. Our purpose is not complicated. And it's done by people with licenses who are unautomated, compensated fairly for helping clients. Our responsibility is to take the fight to the bots and the fakes and the finfluencers and to help these families because they're more vulnerable than ever. Love means never having to say you're sorry. That's my last Valentine's phrase. Let me tell you what that means for us. That means a no regrets crusade to sit at as many kitchen tables as you can, so we never have to apologize tomorrow for the families we could have helped today. Thank you very much.